Hello, and thanks for joining me once again as I get some opinions off my chest. And today's opinions might surprise you. So, in the past, I've shared my opinions about data mesh. I've kind of said I don't think it's appropriate for the majority of companies. I think it's a fantastic idea that a lot of companies aren't really ready for yet, with the whole organizational and social restructure that's required for that level of decentralized ownership. Now, some places, great. They've adopted it. They've spent millions and millions and millions of pounds reorganizing, and they've adopted it wholeheartedly and like, yes, this is it. This is us. Others, they're like, no, we can't afford to change everything. We're not mature enough in our data maturity. Our data is scattered in so many different places. It doesn't make sense to spin up essentially a set of infra for every single domain that's there. Now, for a lot of people, that's like, cool, okay, we'll throw away the entire idea of data mesh and we'll treat it all as not for me. And that's naive, right? Because with every big architectural idea, there are smaller ideas which have fantastic merit. So today, I want to dig into the world of data as a product, or data products. And there's a lot of industry confusion about what those two things are. There's a lot of people who are like, no, there's no confusion. It's set in stone. This is exactly what it is. And then there's a plethora of blogs and thought pieces and all that stuff that entirely disagrees. So I'm just going to add to the confusion and say, this is how we in AA have been using data products. This is how we see it. This is how the terminology we have actually sort of, adopted and used over the past kind of, probably 9-12 months to change how we're delivering things and change how we're thinking about stuff. So that's what I want to talk about. How we use data products, how the bits of data products we see as good and we've adopted, the bits of data products we see as amazing, but we'll never ever get anyone to agree to. And a bit of that, why it's not the same as mesh. That's the plan. That's what we're here to talk about. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're going to hang around. Feel free to chuck any questions and opinions down in the comments. And I know people are going to have opinions about this one. So, yeah. So first and foremost, I am not alone in my plan of going, data mesh, yeah. Data products, yeah, sure. I'll take that, I'll run with it, we'll go and use it. Gartner, for example, put out their hype curve in around July last year. So the Gartner hype curve, kind of upcoming trends, it's what's going to go well, what they thought was really good, but actually people are a bit disillusioned with. It's measuring the ebb and flow of hype and buzzwords and technologies in the data world. There's ones for lots of different areas, but this is the data management hype curve. And you'll see, I've only got my mouse to draw with today, that we've got data mesh actually right at the top. And as early as 2 years ago, whilst data mesh was its, coming up to the biggest thing that was being introduced, the book was coming out, they'd already marked it as going to be obsolete before it actually plateaus and becomes mainstream. They're like, yeah, it's got some merit, there's a lot of hype, but we don't think it's a long-term thing. Now, this year continued, hype is almost at its peak, but the interesting point is this. We've now got data product as a separate thing, as a separate whole ethos, as a separate pattern, as a separate thing that is now separated out from data mesh, that is now rising in hype on its own, treated as a separate approach. So it's not just me. It is not just me saying, actually, the two are not the same thing. And honestly, data products, the idea of applying product thinking to data has been around for a long time. It was not first introduced by data mesh. But it's been really hard to get people to think about it as a product. The businesses have found no impetus, no reason to adopt it. So a lot of the terminology, a lot of the revamped excitement about it, honestly, a lot of the spotlight that mesh brought onto data products is fantastic, because it means actually, basically, people are interested in governance again. It's good. It's a great thing for us data professionals. So what are we talking about? So the best way of seeing it articulated, which not everyone agrees with, is you got the idea of data as a product, which is a whole methodology and you got a whole approach. And then you have data products, which are the output of using that approach. So if I'm applying a data as a product way of thinking, I'm going to build and produce data products as a result of the adoption of that thinking. I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. That is not how everyone articulates it. It's not how everyone describes it. But I'm happy to adopt that and say, okay, let's take that definition. So what is product thinking? Well, if I'm delivering a new product, there's a new website, I'm going to make it go live and I want to go and put it out into the world. Well, there's a few things that I do. Firstly, I do some research and find out, what problem am I solving? Why am I trying to sell this website? What do my users actually want? I have a product owner who goes through and they prioritize those features. They work out how things should work. They design the right user experience. I have a launch. I do a soft launch to people. I do a big launch. I try and generate enthusiasm. I try and sell my product to people. I articulate what benefits they get from it and how they should use it. But also I have guarantees I give to my users. What the SLA is, how long it's going to be up, what the response time is, what they get, what my side of the bargain is. If they buy into my product, what am I going to do to promise them that it's going to be the product that they actually wanted? So a lot of those things have come over into this idea of applying product thinking. How can we take all those things and apply it to the world of data? So all of that's great. But then we've been trying to get the business to take ownership of their own data for decades. That's not new. But it was always treated as a bit carrot and stick. It was always very much, you're the data owner, you're held responsible, I'm going to get a stick and punish you if your data's no good, but you don't get anything in return. Where's the benefit of being a data owner? No one's ever said, hey, can I be the data owner for this? Because it's always seen as a bit of responsibility and a bit of punishment and an extra job that they didn't really want to do. So this whole role of being a data product owner and saying, well, actually, you're the person who launches it to the business. You're the person who gets to decide what features it has and what benefits it's going to do. You're the person who, when it goes live, gets to walk around and wave a flag and go, this is all the benefits the thing I have delivered actually delivers. Now, that's great. That is the carrot end of the stick, where previously there was no carrot. So this idea of building things and finding someone, the champion for that thing, that is then deciding the features, and you're giving away some control as a data team. You're like, no, federated ownership. This is your baby. You can decide what the features are. You can prioritize it. You can decide what level of quality it needs. You can decide what makes it good and what makes it bad. But you then have to adhere to those things, and you're then responsible for looking after it once it's live. It is a give and take, and previously it's only been take. So as an idea of saying there needs to be a product owner, there needs to be a data product owner, that makes huge amounts of sense to us. It's a great way of actually making sure the business is fully engaged and invested in these various different things that we're deploying to do with data. So that whole idea is just great. So much traction in there. Really, really good way of actually engaging with people. At that point, let's clarify some things. So I'm talking about data products. So we're releasing something to do with data. It has an owner in the business who is deciding what it should do, and they're selling it to the rest of the business, and they're responsible for launch, and they're responsible for maintaining it. But what actually is a data product? Now, there is a ton of disagreement out there in industry. Obviously, every single data visualization kind of tool says a data product's a dashboard. A data product is a report. Any kind of individual thing is a product and should be treated like a product. And I completely disagree. So for me, the whole point of self-serve analytics is that there's things that aren't treated like products. I want people to go and actually do their own bits of dashboarding, do their own reporting. I want people these days to write a bit of English language and for some large language model to interpret that and come up with a one-off dashboard that they then use, interpret, and throw away. The whole idea of visualizations being the actual data product just doesn't make sense for me. They're the role and rigor and things that go into product thinking don't make sense for me at the visualization level. For me, it's a step back from that. We're talking about essentially a data model. Just simplify things. Let's talk about medallion architectures, bronze, silver, gold. In my gold layer, I've got a Kimball-style star schema. That star schema is domain-bound. It's talking about a particular business process that we have modeled into a star schema. And that is used for analytics. And that could be used to, put straight into a semantic model and put some reports off the back of it. It could be used to just do some deep data analysis. It could be plugged straight into an operational dashboard ticking away on a monitor somewhere. It could be used to feed a machine learning model. That, for me, is the data product. I'm producing a curated data asset with a load of features, a load of uptime guarantees, a load of quality guarantees, and then, there'll be some dashboards and reports that are managed centrally that we put out to the users. But there'll be a whole plethora of stuff that people build themselves, because that's the point of self-serve analytics. So for me, a data product is a curated data set produced around a set domain, published out to the business with a set of specifications and guarantees and parameters around it. So that's how I define it. That's how I draw the line. Not everyone draws the line that way. That's fine. You do you. So there's a couple of distinguishing things. It doesn't have to be lots of tables. You could have one big wide table if you're going the one big table kind of data architecture method. It could be a machine learning model, because that in itself is something that is providing data itself. But they're essentially the three kind of ideas. Well, two. Data models of various different kinds that are curated and ready for business consumption, and machine learning models. That is what I want to apply data as a product thinking to. Now, this is very specifically, everything I'm talking about is around analytics. So yeah, technically, all of your source systems, all of your applications, the data that they pump out should be treated like a product. They are data products of their own right. But that's not what I'm thinking about here. I'm talking about analytical data products. I'm talking about the data products that are built from consuming other data, massaging it, applying some business logic, applying calculations, aggregating stuff together, and producing a curated data asset to answer certain business problems. That, for me, is an analytical data product. Now, you might cry out now and go, well, that just means I've got loads of data products. Look at all my data products. I've got star schemas everywhere. And the differentiation is, do they have a designated data product owner who is their champion, that is looking after it, that is on the business side of the fence? Do they have agreed specifications and uptime and timeliness and guarantee? And are those measured and published out? Essentially, are you treating it like a product? So you might have a data mart with star schemas. Are you treating it like a product? If not, it's not really a data product yet. You can uplift it and start treating it like a product. Great. Hallelujah. Please do that. But yeah, it's about the application of product thinking. That's what we're getting to. It's not the fact that it's a star schema. So that's a big shift in terms of how people think about things. It's not massive. We've been trying to do this kind of thing for a long time. But we've suddenly found that with a lot of the focus on this kind of stuff over the last year, the business is much more receptive to it. People are much more receptive to saying, yeah, no, absolutely. Can I be the owner? Can I actually design all the features and agree what we need to do with it? And then can I get the credit when we launch it? Absolutely. But you're also going to be held accountable for looking after it. Okay, yeah, sure. So when we design a big data platform these days, we start by going, okay, cool. There's the platform engineering bits. There's the, do you need separate platforms that belong to maybe different business units or different areas of the business, or are you having your infrastructure centralized? I don't care. There's different business things. Do they have the team? Do they have the resources? Was centralized going to be okay? Does it need to be split out? And honestly, technology that are, off-the-shelf tech for doing things and having a federated system, much easier these days. Databricks, you got Unity Catalog, you can have a bunch of different Databricks workspaces, and they just all register their data with Unity Catalog, and then you have a common layer for your analytical data products. Fabric, very much going that same way of having, you've got these different domains people can stand up, and whether you're using a lakehouse or a warehouse or data flows, it pumps things out in the same standard, and they're published in the same way. You consume it however you want. People are heading towards this anyway. This idea of you can mix and match a bit of tech, you can have distributed things, you can have unified governance across the top. Whether you do that unified governance against one set of infra or 10 sets of infra, that is just a logistical problem in terms of the skills that you have in your teams. Saying who owns that data model, who's responsible for the design, who's responsible for looking after it and the upkeep, and that being federated, that's the magic. That's not pure data mesh. That is not what data mesh is getting at in the majority of stuff. Data mesh goes too far down the distributed tech, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a big change about how we think about things. So when you're next about to publish out a new data model, do you have a backlog that is defined and reviewed and owned by the business? Are you publishing some specs behind it saying, we're going to measure these bits and call that data quality, and we're going to publish a score about how clean that data is? We're going to guarantee the timeliness of this data. It's never going to be more than 12 hours out of date, 24 hours out of date. 10 minutes out of date, whatever it happens to be. Guaranteeing all the things that you'd want from a product. Documentation. Release notes when it changes. Change management and dependencies. All boring SLA things that are so vital about people having trust in the product that you're trying to sell them. Works the same way when we try and get some data working internally. Massive, massive shift in terms of actually how we think about the stuff that we're standing up and talking to the business about. So many data teams these days are kind of just looked so inwards. They go, no, but we understand the data more than the business do. We understand the source systems, and so we do the data models so that we can make the report that the business want. It's like, but if you're making a data model by looking at the source system, that means you're not talking in the business's language. That means the business don't really know what's available, what's possible. They're not thinking about, oh, but if I did it that way, I could achieve. They're not thinking about the value that you get. Who on earth designs a product, launches a product, and then doesn't measure if the product makes any money? And yet we do it constantly as data teams. We stand up a new star schema, and then we're like, does anyone use it? Don't really know. Oh, maybe they use the report. We can track usage on the reports. Great teams actually look at telemetry of users. Did they get value from it? Why are we building it? We built this star schema so that we could save X amount of money over the next 2 years, so that we could harness a market opportunity and actually make X million in the next 3 years. Does anyone actually go back and measure those things in the star schemas that they produce? Oftentimes, data teams don't. Got no concept of that. They've been asked by the business, can I have this report? Sure, we'll build a data model, we'll build a report, we'll push it out. But they're not saying, okay, you want that report. What's the value? Can we measure the value you get from the report? What business problem are you trying to solve? That is product thinking. That is saying there has to be a point for doing this. And if we're doing that, great. So yeah, big fundamental shift in terms of how we think about things, how we talk to the business, how we manage things, who's involved. That data product owner role is kind of different to how data owner roles have been in the past. It's a combination of a traditional product owner plus a data owner plus, I guess, some new thing that's kind of growing. It's honestly hard. It's a specialist skill. If you've got someone plucked from the business who deeply understands the business domain, they desperately want to drive value. Are they going to have all the skills and knowledge about actually what's possible with data? Are they going to be able to talk in the language that your data engineering teams actually understand? Basically, we're going to see a whole role with responsibilities and skills and learnings. There's going to be learning paths. So when you go, so you want to be a data product owner? Cool. You need to go through this quick half-day training course to actually understand some of the things that we're talking about. Say half day. That's a quick get up to speed kind of thing. Maybe it's a lot deeper than that. So that is where we're kind of seeing data products going. And it's, yeah, you might be surprised that I am so into it, honestly. But I've seen such a big change it's made. And so much of it is because people looked at Mesh, came to us and said, could you build the data mesh? And we're like, no. Why? What are you trying to achieve? And then talking around the problems that we're trying to do, that idea of federated ownership over the domain made so much sense and could actually bring them so much value. But it doesn't have to be tied to all of the other stuff that comes with Mesh, which is so focused around the software engineering side, the decentralized technology, the standing up infra for everything side. Ignore all that, pluck out that fantastic nugget, which is data products, which is, again, it didn't come from Mesh originally, but has been popularized by Mesh. And yeah, for us, it is a great idea and there's lots behind it. Now that, as an impassioned rant about why it's a good thing, doesn't really tell you much about how to get started. There is a huge amount in it around restructuring how you go about designing data projects, how you go about gathering requirements and actually the roles that people have in those projects, how you go about launching a new data model, the fact that you have a launch. If you've just published and got to production with a new star schema, tell the business, run a showcase, use data storytelling to actually craft a narrative about what someone can do and where the value is to inspire people to use it more. People never do that, and they should. All of these fantastic things take a lot of prep, take a lot of thinking, take a lot of getting into that headspace. But if you put the work in and think about how that can work in your organization, if you think about how you can actually start to use those things, there is just so much value in it. It is insane. So yeah, kind of bit that caught us a bit by surprise last year is just how much that exploded. I am not at all surprised now that to see data products on the hype curve going up. And not at all surprised that it's actually marked on the Gartner hype curve as it's going to be mainstream within a couple of years. You tend to get those categories of it's going to be within 2 years, 2 to 5 years, or it's going to take a long time before this is mainstream, or it's going to go obsolete before it gets to mainstream, like Mesh is marked. The idea that data products, a couple of years, and it'll be mainstream everywhere. So start thinking about it now. Start making that decisions. If you're about to embark on a massive data project, or indeed you have a ton of star schemas that you're currently managing, start thinking about how you can make those a little bit more like a product. Start questioning, what do you promise to the business around it, and how do you keep yourself honest with those things? Start questioning how you can help the business take ownership of it by giving them something in return. It's a two-way street. Yeah, so that is all I wanted to rant about. Just to talk about something that is just, we are talking about constantly with clients. Never really talked about it on here. So I thought I'd pop on, have a bit of a rant. Go look into data products. And again, I warn you, there is a huge amount of literature out there in the world. Not all of it agrees. Agrees. Some people have one definition of data product, other people have a different one. What we are calling analytical data products, that is one definition that we are using in advancing analytics. Other people don't necessarily do the same. Make your own mind up. That's always my advice. This is one opinion. Go find lots of opinions. Make your own mind up. We are seeing huge amounts of value in it. I suggest you look into it. Right, that is all I wanted to rant about. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll find you next time with something techie and we can talk about some code somewhere. All right, cheers.